Question of whether or not we should jail the tech bros, a slow march toward real authoritarianism in this country. I was not making fun of the fact that he was short. I was pointing out that he was very short. Enter founder mode.
I'm always in founders mode.
They don't have permission to run their companies in founder mode.
Elizabeth was in founders mode.
No, that's definitely founder mode. She was in the fast lane foundering the whole time. Welcome back to the greatest competition on earth.
So it's nanny state. It is also like an insidious way to make Americans docile and less productive.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the pod. We have the one and the only Eade of Twitter fame here joining us today. I've been friends with Eade for years now, but the first time I realized that she had serious posting chops was back during the It's Time to Build era. Mark Andreessen released It's Time to Build, an essay that created this sort of eponymous meme, It's Time to Build, which you hear about to this amazing. We have Eade with us all day. Eade, we have multiple topics, just guest host for the day. Also joining us for Pirate Idol, which you guys should stick around for or just fast forward to. I mean, if you are here for Pirate Idol at this point, it's possible. It's blowing up. Everyone's talking about it. It's on television. I would understand if you are just here for Pirate Idol at this point. We also have Polymarket, our Polymarket segment coming up towards the end of this pod, right before Pirate Idol. We're going to be discussing the question of whether or not illegal immigrants should or should not be allowed to vote. Not really, but that's where I'm going to go when we start talking about the SAVE Act, which has to do with voter ID. But for now, let's just fucking get into it. The very first thing that we are talking about today, what else could we talk about? It is the question of whether or not we should jail the tech bros. I wrote a piece you should check out on Pirate Wires called Jail the Tech Bros. And I think it's sort of two things. The first thing is just, you guys, if you've been following the Brazil, obviously you've all been following the Brazil stuff. Everyone's following the Brazil stuff. So Brazil has this sort of dictator, judge, tyrant who nukes Twitter. There's a huge, giant, long saga here, but the gist of it is just, judge has new powers to moderate speech in the country, code for censorship. Every other platform sort of apparently plays by the rules other than X, which decides not to listen to the new sort of dictator judge. Now, I would say that's just kind of what happens if you're selling software abroad. You have to play by their rules and not be surprised when a dictator acts like a dictator. I know he's not technically a dictator, but I'm going to be calling him that for the rest of the podcast. However, Elon censors speech in accordance with local law all over the world. So it was a little bit strange to begin with that this drama was happening. Elon alleges that the judge is breaking the laws of his own country, which places this in a strange category. The law also threatened to arrest Elon's employees in Brazil if he didn't comply with the various acts of censorship that he requested. He also requested them to be held in silence or done in secret. Elon said no, and instead fired his entire team in Brazil, so they could not be arrested. Again, allegedly, according to Twitter, the lawyer representing their case in court still had her bank accounts frozen and whatnot. The judge loses his mind once the attack exposure is revoked. He nukes the platform and also goes after Starlink, which is a separate company. Because, again, to be fair, Elon went out with both middle fingers up and said, well, if you're going to ban X from every single device, which he did, and you're going to ban new downloads, you're going to create a new fine for people who use a VPN to access X, what I'm going to do is just toggle Starlink to free speech and allow anybody who's using this service to access X. So yeah, judge melting down. The real story here for me is the way that we've been talking about it at home, which is just sub-theme really at this point of all of what we do at Pirate Wires, is just interrogate the way that we are talking about issues like that and how that is turning into policy. And so there are a series of articles we've already talked about out of The Guardian. They have a third now from Robert Reich, who is the former Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton, who actually called for the arrest of Elon Musk in order to, quote, rein him in. Now, why does this matter? This matters, I think, because we've been seeing a slow march toward real authoritarianism in this country. We're now, Brazil's not happening in a vacuum. You have obviously all of the speech we discussed over the last few weeks in UK, all this sort of anti-free speech actions, the arrests. You have the EU, you have Thierry Breton at the EU demanding censorship of, last time we talked, the conversation between Elon Musk and Donald Trump on X, an American speech platform. So an American entrepreneur, an American president, an American speech platform, a foreign bureaucrat trying to get involved in our shit. I don't like it. It is offensive to me and really dangerous when you add the greater context of it all, which is we have an unearthed clip going viral at the moment, thanks in small part to myself, of Kamala Harris talking about her conception of the Department of Justice's responsibility to police speech on platforms like, at the time, Twitter. This was 2019 when she said this, so not too long ago.
And will put the Department of Justice of the United States back in the business of justice. We will double the Civil Rights Division and direct law enforcement to counter this extremism. We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy.
Tim Walz, her running mate, we've already discussed, has also characterized or sort of described his conception of free speech, which does not include misinformation or hate. Kamala agrees on this. Why does this matter? I know everyone's like, oh no, but that was 5 years ago. Kamala Harris is a totally different candidate now. We can't blame her for what she said 5 years ago. One, I find that stupid, frankly, to just pretend that she's changed her mind fundamentally on these things. But two, she didn't even change her mind. She hasn't actually come out and said, I no longer believe in this. She hasn't been asked about this because, in part, I guess, she's not doing interviews. And I don't think it's a leap at this point to really suspect that we're at risk of losing free speech in this country, at least in the way that we have had it for all of our lives. This is not me being, pearl clutchy. This is not me making shit up here. I genuinely believe at this point that we're at some risk here. And what I would like right now is for you guys to talk me down. I mean, am I being crazy here? Is there a reason for hope? Seems bleak.
So you said that clip was from 2019. I just realized that COVID did more negative stuff for free speech and misinformation than any event maybe in our lifetime. Yeah. That's when COVID set misinformation up to be elevated into the same category as terrorism, right? Terrorism is a threat to the West. Misinformation is a threat to democracy. And these are very serious things that we should deal with. And I think the COVID thing is just interesting. I just realized that now. But generally, my thought on all of this is it really, I think you're pretty much on point. And just to shore up that point, what we're seeing now with misinformation is we're being told it's a threat to democracy, but I don't see a lot of people actually worrying about misinformation that's actually a threat to democracy. I think what's actually happening is that people with agenda are using misinformation to humiliate, silence, embarrass, or censor other people who they don't like just doing free speech. And I think that's basically the short of it. And combine that with the fact that now you have Robert Reich calling for Elon Musk's arrest, and the fact that generally you are no longer considered crazy for calling for somebody to be jailed for enabling free speech. And I think, it is really scary. Again, we just have misinformation is now in the category of existential threat to something we care about a lot, which is democracy. And people are starting to use call anything misinformation, I think. Even just somebody being highly partisan and emotional, that can be misinformation.
I believe the word they used was, they invented a word a while ago. They tried to make stick called malinformation. Yeah, for something that is true, but
not good for you. Yeah,
dishonest in some way. The Robert Reich thing. So, I mean, I just think people are not taking this seriously. Like, as you said, you're having calls for the arrest of actual calls from this guy's an academic at Berkeley, but he's a former huge, really important player in the Clinton administration, calling for the arrest of an American for a law that does not exist here, but exists abroad. And no one really, I think no one really takes it seriously. That's why I wrote the piece. It's like, it seems to me that you're not listening to the things that they're saying. And the reason that's a problem is because Trump didn't do half the things he said he was going to do. Okay, where's the fucking wall? I'm waiting. There's no wall. The state's very good when it talks about tax policy or when it talks about, the internet legislation or something. It's very good at eventually getting to the point and doing it. Robert Reich saying that to me is that there should be outcry for weeks over this. And what I have instead is people in my comments, well, not all of them, but you have a couple of people in my comments sort of criticizing me for making fun of the fact that he was short. And I will say, just in my defense, I was not making fun of the fact that he was short. I was pointing out that he was very short. And that to me is relevant. I believe that there is a Napoleon complex thing happening there. I think and when I say short, man, I really am trying not to be insensitive here. I'm not talking about like the guy's like 5'8", house dad.
We love a short king.
He's 4'11". So I think that he looks at the world differently. I mean, literally, he's looking, mostly up at it. And I think that what's happening there is it naturally has made him sort of extra sensitive to any kind of threat whatsoever. And I do believe, I didn't make fun of him for it. I said, I think it explains some of his worldview. I'm trying to understand it from his perspective. Again, his perspective is like, it's about 2 feet low. I mean, I'm not bragging, but I'm 6'2", so.
He's like an authoritarian prey animal.
I think so. Well, I think it's like when you feel unsafe, I think most of the authoritarianism generally comes from a place of anxiety and feeling unsafe. And if your whole life you felt unsafe, then that says to me that you're attracted. I mean, who knows? Who wants to generalize? But I can see how that would create a sense of sort of wanting order and security. And you should look at the pictures of him looking up at Bill Clinton. It's like love. He looks as if, this man is protecting me, he's safe. It's like a little boy looking at his dad. And, very disturbing in context of the laws that he's now endorsing. But,
to your point, the headline I think mentions like, we're not so powerless to stop him. So there is definitely like a victim mentality there.
Well, you think that they're invoking the victim mentality? Oh,
yeah, Robert is for sure. It's like, we're not powerless to stop him,
Oh, he's saying we're not powerless.
Yeah. Well, it's like, maybe we can like do something, but it's like the idea that, that there's this like all powerful person. You have to like,
right. What to stop? What? Yes. Like to stop what? What are they? All of these articles, the New York Times had an article too that did something similar where they have a bunch actually on the topic of Brazil, where they go in and they say just super casually, something along the lines of, as has been, discussed over the last couple of years or concluded over the last couple of years. It's something along those lines. And then they reference the link between free speech and erosion of democratic norms or an assault on democracy. They're drawing this weird one-to-one of you have free speech online and then democracy is in danger. And they don't provide any citations. They don't explain, as we saw in this country when they had free speech and then democracy vanished. I think there's actually an argument you could make for that. They don't seem to make it. I would like to see them make it. I don't feel that has been really established. I don't think it's been established in America that with greater free speech, we've become less democratic, other than, I guess, what I'm seeing out of the Democratic Party, things like subverting the Democratic primary. That to me is pretty anti-democratic. But was it free speech that did that? I don't think so. I guess maybe it was a dissemination of Biden speaking that seemed to panic them. But in fact, it had nothing to do with us talking about Biden. It had to do with just the reality of the fact that Biden seems to have dementia.
Yeah, it's like this core tenet of democracy is going to ruin democracy.
Yes, the value. We have to protect democratic norms by abolishing them. It's ridiculous. Riley, what do you make of this?
Yeah, so something else we sort of have talked about here is, I guess, sort of like the collision course between Elon sort of like poking the bear like he posted recently this week an AI image of Kamala in like full communist garb. And so saying like, can you believe Kamala wears this? So like using AI in your taunts is like adding to the fire, because if there's one thing these people hate more than like misinformation, it's using AI as part of that misinformation. That's like the ultimate no-no. So it does sort of feel like those two things are sort of on a collision course, both the threats to free speech and Elon sort of just goading it as it moves on.
What do you make of why they're so threatened by the AI stuff?
Because I'm not sure. I think there's an element to, they have always hated the tech industry, and this is a key element of the tech industry. And so if they can nip this in the bud before it becomes too big, then they have sort of delivered this big win against the tech sector. I think that could be it.
I think it mocks them. I think that it's so easy to mock them now. There's a video, Matt, let me know if you can find it. It came out, I think, this morning. There's this sort of punkish kind of song playing, and then it's just all of these AI deepfakes of the various leaders and foreign strongmen, their faces superimposed over sexy 1950s, 1960s looking pinup models in various, I don't know, like ways. And it's just really ridiculous. And there's something really just shattering of the myth of power that happens when you see this stuff. And I think they just don't, like, for understandable reasons, liking it. I think there's some real stuff. I mean, the deepfake porn stuff is concerning to me, and is such a weird question of, is that even a violation of privacy? Because it's not real, but it looks so real. So does that count? And these are questions maybe that are interesting, but we don't know how to answer. The idea of AI generated election misinformation, I've not even seen a single example of that yet. What is the example that they're going to show us? I'm waiting for the real example that really everyone says, oh my God, that's crazy that this thing that didn't actually happen because it was AI generated. The closest we got recently was the Photoshop of Ben Horowitz and his wife in Trump hats, but that wasn't AI. That was just a Photoshop. That was just a picture. And ultimately it was debunked and people moved on with their lives. I don't know. I'm not that scared of it. I could be naive. I mean, it's happened before.
I still think the biggest piece of misinformation that was generated by AI is the chat that Kevin Roose had with Sydney that caused him to write this article saying that it tried to break up his marriage.
It's a chatbot, Kevin.
Yeah.
Maybe it's all the AI photos of Trump and Kamala making out. I don't know if this is purpose on your timeline.
I didn't want it. It just felt like a longing for love at that point.
Yeah, it was too tempting for her. She's like, shut it down.
What about, but Brandon, didn't he write something recently going back
I didn't research this, so I might get it wrong, but he seemed to, so he wrote this article about how now when he talks to chatbots about himself, they tend to describe him as histrionic and sensationalist. And I think in the article, he doesn't actually realize that maybe it was because he wrote this article about how he earnestly believes that a chatbot was trying to break up his marriage.
I thought that it was his make. Hold on. I thought that he was saying, I realize that I'm known now as the stupid AI guy because of this.
It could be. I didn't read the whole thing.
We're going to have to read it. I didn't read it either. I heard that Kevin Roose was doing something stupid on the topic of AI again. I don't hate Kevin. I don't want to trash Kevin.
Yeah,
but I did think that article was crazy. And I thought it was irresponsible to write a 10,000 word piece on a chatbot ruining your marriage potentially, and sort of highlighting the risk of that when we all know exactly what happened. It was an illusion provoked by him in his questioning of the chatbot, which I actually broke down in a piece that you guys should check out if you're actually curious at the topics. Kevin Roose and AI, it was just called It's a Chatbot, Kevin. And it's one of my proudest pieces, I think.
I think that there is one way that we maybe get out of this, and that it's that it turns out that misinformation is a moral panic, just as microaggressions and racism turned out to be a moral panic between the years of 2018 and 2024. I think that during those years, people got called racist. I mean, there's that thread on Twitter where the guy keeps updating it with like things that are racist, like hiking is racist.
Well, have you
I don't know,
done the Google
snowboarding
thing?
is racist or whatever.
If you just
And-
Google it, give me a word
Yeah.
right now. Give me a noun, something, anything. Bananas.
Yeah, sure.
Bananas are racist.
Sewing, probably
Okay,
sewing is
so-
racist.
Well-
Very first thing that comes up. Bananas again create racial tension at
Well, I guess
American
that, yeah, maybe that's not the best.
But
Okay,
not
well,
great.
give me-
Melon's like a game.
Apples are racist. Food injustice has deep roots. Let's start with America's. It's the apple pies. As American is stolen
Yes,
land, wealth and
there we
labor.
go.
Top 5.
So-
a few bad apples are okay. That one is apple pie. Question: is apple pie racist? The Independent, June 2021. Give me something else. Chairs are racist. How a white folding chair became a symbol of resistance. Let's see. Russian socialite in The Guardian. I love The Guardian these days.
So chairs are
January 2014, Russian socialite sparks outrage with racist chair. This is not a joke, guys.
So that's my point. My point is like when you call everything something else, then the word that you're calling it doesn't mean anything anymore. And eventually you get laughed out of the room. Because I think now when you see these articles, which are few and far between, calling something randomly racist, usually, at least on Twitter, I just see them, getting mocked and nobody's taking them seriously anymore. So hopefully we go that way with misinformation.
I think the other point here too is that misinformation generally applies to like foreign media or user generated content and not established media. So I think all of that content like threatens media in its own form. And gullible people are super valuable to politicians. And so if the misinformation, isn't swinging your way, you kind of have to wage war against it.
Yeah, they've lost. I think the media is a good point. I mean, if you lose, they're already sort of on the defensive because they've lost the press to a certain extent. I mean, there's this alternative press that's budding, and yeah, AI is just another version of that right now. Or not even. I mean, AI generally, but there's something about the deepfakes in particular that they kind of keep harping on. I've never quite understood that when it comes to just text-generated misinformation, I'll see people screenshot text-generated misinformation sometimes, and it's like, we can do that with a word processor. I can type out, it's possible to type out misinformation on a word processor. I was accused of it for the last 5 years. Like I am aware of the word processor type of misinformation. I'm not exactly sure why the AI generated misinformation is scarier. Maybe if you pair it with, an army of Russian bots, and what are some other left-wing conspiracies we can add to it to like really make it scary? Trying to think of them. What are the other, they had, what was recently, the Blue Anon, craze. The rants
there was a lot of weird stuff.
Trump faking. It was the fake Trump assassination. Which I guess, we forget because no one even talks about that anymore. All right, we got to move on. I want all of you right now to, if you will, exit manager mode and enter founder mode. And this is a chat. These next, let's say 20 minutes, founders only. Riley, break down the story and tell us what we learned this week.
Sure thing. So Paul Graham penned an essay this week, free of the word delve, called Founder Mode, a piece that was apparently sparked by a talk at a YC event from Airbnb's Brian Chesky, more on him later, where Chesky talks about how the advice given to founders about adopting a sort of laissez-faire leadership style or just hire good people and give them room to do their jobs only led to disastrous results. So Paul goes on to characterize that mindset as manager mode, which he differentiates between this mythical founder mode, which is presumably more involved, in which he compares to how Steve Jobs ran Apple. But aside from that comparison, Paul is pretty light on details about what exactly founder mode is. However, that didn't stop many memes from springing up about founder mode, as well as many others jumping in to immediately say that founder mode was sexist. At least one individual slid into Solana's comments and said of founder mode, "It's unfair that women can't adopt it as easily without facing significant backlash." Brian Chesky himself tweeted, "Women founders have been reaching out to me over the past 24 hours about how they don't have permission to run their companies in founder mode the same way men can. This needs to change." And in another notable example that I'm sure you guys will love, Sophia Amoroso author of the book Girl Boss, who is responsible for taking that term into the mainstream, penned a huge tweet about founder mode saying, quote, "It happened to me first. Headlines portraying me as a toxic leader when I had to make the same, often unpopular decisions that my male peers did without critique. For them, it's called founders mode. For women, it's called toxic." So yeah, while much of the details...
Okay, a lot to unpack here. We need to just table the sexism. Founders mode is sexist. Just pause. We're putting that over here for now. First, what is in search of founder mode? What is founder mode? I would love to know what founder mode is. I know what founder mode is not. Founder mode is not being a manager. Founder mode is not, Paul says, hiring the best people and getting out of their way and letting them do whatever. Beyond the sort of definition by negative, we never actually were told what founder mode is explicitly. So when I say this, I'm not just being an asshole. I'm not saying, oh my God, this guy is so bad. He didn't do this thing. It's a shitty essay that everyone likes. He himself said he could not possibly describe founder mode in this essay because it's just too complex. It would take a whole book. It would take him forever, and he could never deign to try and cover all of the amazing things about founder mode in one single little essay. But he did conclude, one day, when we finally figure out what it is, it's going to change the world. That was how he concluded this piece. So obviously everybody online, I don't know if they didn't read it. I don't know if they maybe you're all having secret conversations about founder mode in a founder mode group chat that somebody forgot to invite me to, but they all seem to know what founder mode was. And my sense overall is that it's nothing. And what founder mode actually means, there's not one way to build a successful company. Okay, there is one way to unsuccessfully manage a company to death, but there's not one way to successfully build a company. There are a million different ways to create Peter Thiel famously once said, every successful company is a miracle. And that is really, I think, could just be my bias. That's certainly the school of thinking about the stuff that I come from. Paul maybe is coming from a school where you could perhaps explain to people how to build a successful company and how to be a successful founder. I don't think that exists. I think this entire thing is actually just an exercise in identity. You have founders, I'm one of them. It's exhausting and hard, and you do have to work in a way that the average person doesn't work just to kind of survive and keep the company going. You feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. And so what do founders like? They like to be told that they are one, special, and two, hardcore. And I think they are both of those things, honestly, but founder mode became a way for us to talk about that. And probably would seem a little cheesy to just explain what it is in an honest way. But instead, that's where the conversation is now. That's my read of that piece. Before we get into the sexism, which is just amazing, the fact that it's been 2 days, but it was 2 days. Okay, so founder mode as a phrase entered the lexicon 2 days later. We still didn't know what it was. And it was already sexist. That was how the discourse evolved. But Brandon, what did you make of founder mode? Are you in founder mode now? Is the founder mode in the room with us right now?
I'm always in founders mode. You should know that about me. That's how I got the job.
I believe that, honestly.
You saw me and you were like, "You're in founder mode right now." And I was like, "Of course I am." No, I thought it was funny. I think they kind of, I don't know. I don't know any of these people, but I have respect for Paul G and I have respect for Gary Tan and the white combinator people. So I don't want to dunk too hard, but I do think this situation snowballed a little bit too quickly and it ended up kind of beclowning the whole group. They kind of
that YC dude.
That's what I was going to say. Right. So Jared Friedman, who I had never heard of before this, no offense to him or anything. I'm sure he's important and all that, but they jumped the shark. This whole thing jumped the shark when he tweeted something like that the event felt like the Potsdam conference where the best minds came together and invented a new doctrine. And so I just thought that was pretty I don't know, when you start calling this a historic moment in tech, it's a little bit hard. I was like, okay,
I'm going to defend the memeing. I think the memeing is fine. And to actually not, I think to not describe it and to just do a meme.
Being serious.
The what?
He was being serious.
Oh no,
though.
he was being serious. I'm going to talk about Gary. So Gary's releasing all these AI generated posters of people being in founder mode. I actually, from those posters, gleaned more about founder mode than I did from the essay about founder mode. And that's because you can get a lot from a meme. You know, we actually do learn from memes basically that way. That's how we learn memes, and we learn what a concept is. I think it's a very clever way of getting at what founder mode is or what it is not. I think that the essay being worshipped was a little bit ridiculous. And I think referring it to the Potsdam conference, not ironically, is, I mean, how do you not just know
That's
at that
more
point?
founder mode than anything. What's not founder mode about being self-aggrandizing?
Yeah, that is founder mode. As
Not you though.
It was placed in contrast with investor mode was one that I saw.
Yeah.
Investor mode.
That was also, Matt, share the meme and I'll find it for
Was
you later.
that like golfing?
It was Anna Mosterik. She shares a screenshot from Masayoshi-san. Jesus Christ was also misunderstood. Masayoshi-san tells investors that SoftBank founders defends 13 billion annual loss by comparing himself to the son of God. That was the Financial Times, an actual story. Anyway, she screenshots that and says investor mode. It went hard. For me, that was the highlight. But yeah, I mean, I am in founder mode. I am searching also though for a few more details. Sorry, Eade, were you about to say something?
No. I think the baseline difference between like manager mode and founder mode is like when you're a manager, your incentives are kind of oriented around performance reviews, around like being collaborative, around like your obviously what the exec team wants, but you have to be so partial to all these other things. And founder mode is like ignoring some of the whining and that sounds like evil boss, but yeah, it's ignoring some of the whining, like, trusting your own instincts. Founder mode is the people you fired along the way.
Well, so the thing about that is what we're really talking about is the difference between a manager and a founder. So is that what founder mode is? Is it just means you're a founder, you're a successful founder? Is founder mode just when you are a successful founder? And I think that it actually, if you had to actually write it down and explain what founder mode is, I think that's what it would look like. Is it's just successful founder, and at that point, again, there are a million different ways. Not a million, but there are many different ways to do that, and it's just not a concept, right? That's not.
Can you be in founder mode if you're not successful? Is having like a mattress on the floor and no bed frame, does that count?
Well, because you're going to be successful one day. So maybe you never know if you're in founder mode until the end of your life. You can't actually, founder mode is not actually determined right away. You determine it 50 years from now, it can be determined. It can't be determined. I think I'm in founder mode, but I might be in manager mode.
Oh, no.
Which is a horrifying thought. If you were like accidentally in manager mode for decades and you were trying your best to be in founder mode and probably talking about founder mode. The what?
It's like the Hall of Fame. You get inducted into it after your career.
It's at the very there's like that's a phenomenal museum idea. Founder mode. It would suck. It would suck to figure out that you were manager all along. Yeah, I also think it's kind of interesting. I don't know that it's very founder mode to be talking about founder mode all the time and to be saying that you're doing founder mode. What it's certainly not founder mode to do. It's not to me. Based on the vibe of the memes that I'm seeing, and kind of just like what gut feels right to me. It does not strike me as very founder mode-y to cry about being persecuted for founder mode or entering founder mode. And that is what we got a little bit of in the context of a sexism conversation, which, I mean, Riley, you alluded to, I touched on for a second. It feels like the ghost of Christmas 2017. And I cannot believe that we are back here with a super famous entrepreneur publicly opening up the floodgate for this kind of crying of like, oh no, when a man does it, it's boss, but when a woman does it, it's, I guess this is like a sort of boss bitch conversation. Oh, I mean, but that's what we're doing, right? It's like when a man does it, it's fine, but whatever. And honestly, Madonna did it first and she said it better. But in the context of founders mode, I find it just incredibly rich to be saying this when we can't even define it yet. Do you just mean running a business? The thing that Brian Chesky kept sharing was in defense, because obviously he says this, he's been getting all these phone calls from female founders who say they weren't permitted to do this. people are in his comments saying, what do you mean, like, what do you mean permitted or given permission to or whatever? It's not how this works. They say to the man who, I guess, coined it. So I don't even know if they were right to challenge him. But in his response, he shared screenshots about the Girl Boss founder being fired or losing her job or whatever it was. And I just thought to myself, do you think, is your conception of the phrase girl boss just that it is a boss who is a girl? Because that was a whole cultural moment that has nothing to do with just like a woman being in charge of something. Anyway, Brandon, break down the actual girl boss who entered the chat.
Okay. I'm going to start with Brian Chesky, who again, I respect. Feels bad to be dunking on these people in a way, but like, so there was a clip of him talking about what unique things, what about founders are unique in a company? You know, like how is a founder distinct from a manager or an employee? And I'm 99% sure that this clip was recorded before the founders mode meme came out, right? And so one of the things that he says, but I'm going to, I think when he was talking about founders in this clip, it must have informed founders mode, the speech that he gave at Y Combinator. One of the things that makes founders distinct in his view is that, and you could, I don't know, Matt, if you want to play this, but he says something like founders and founders alone have like root access to the actual company in such a way that they can change the company like nobody else can. They can pivot the company like nobody else can. They have this like special access where, again, they don't need permission from anybody to make changes. And I think that's actually true, right? And so when I saw the lady was nasty, Sophia something, she's the founder of Nasty Gal, saying that she did not have permission to go into founders mode. My first reaction was like, that's totally incoherent. Like you are misunderstanding founders mode, which I definitely understand. Right. The second thing was that kind of got my goat a little bit, quite frankly, was just that, I don't know, like I don't know if Sophia has heard of like Elon Musk or seen any of the news about him over the past 10 years. Like, you know, for example, a judge in Delaware literally voided his entire compensation package for partisan reasons for being a toxic, like, guy, whatever. Right?
No, Elon was girl bossing too hard, and he was punished for it. They didn't give him
permission to, but he carried through, and he did founders mode, is what I'm saying. Like Brian Armstrong, like, there was a month-long media cycle after he said that his company should no longer focus on Black Lives Matter and instead focus on cryptocurrency. Travis, what's his last name? The Uber guy, Adam Newman. People like, I think half the country thinks like Adam is in a cult or something like that. I kind of think Adam is in a cult, and like all he did was like have a company during a bad commercial real estate market, you know. So I don't totally buy that, like, that when women went into founders mode, they were not given permission, and so they were unable to. But when men did, they were totally able to.
I mean, what about Palmer Luckey?
And they were totally given permission. Palmer Luckey. Also, if you just
fired
for voting for Trump. If you step back a little bit, not to get like two men's rights activists here, like the whole movement during 2018 to 2024 or 2023 maybe was centered around men. Like it was like men are bad and they do microaggressions and they're toxic. And a lot of people got canceled for really, really dumb reasons. Who's this guy at Netflix? I don't know if you guys remember this story, but Jonathan Freeland, after they released, I think, like a Chappelle special. This is the chief comms officer of Netflix. He had to say he said the N word, but in the context of describing the word, but not, obviously wasn't calling anybody the N word. He gets fired, right? And it's just like that is not, there was no ill intent. There was no racism. So I don't know. I could keep going on the list here, but I just thought that this specific strand of like, well, women can't do founders mode, but men can. It's like, no, men can definitely not do founders mode. And they just Google, Elon, Brian, Travis, all these
Right.
people.
If you're going to just define founder mode in the way that we've intuited from the memeing and the personal stories as just going your own way, then they're criticized constantly. And then also,
that's why they get criticized.
What actually happened with Nasty Gal? She wasn't just fired because she was succeeding. What was she?
No. Well, her company went bankrupt. She filed for bankruptcy. And it wasn't anything like, I read about it. There's not too much public information about it, but she started Nasty Gal as she was an eBay seller. And so she grew that into a big company. She got a lot of funding. People were very big on fast fashion at the time. So there was a little bit of like I don't want to call it a bubble, but there was a lot of investor, a lot of frothiness for her company. So she got a bunch of investment, and she grew the company too fast. She couldn't handle inventory. She basically was just she was out of her skis, and it kind of collapsed on her. And that there was some lawsuits, but it's not really fair to hold that against her, in my opinion. But she just
sounds like she was in founder mode, and actually she just failed, which mostly happens in founder. Most founders fail. They act like this. It's not like every guy who acts like this succeeds. They mostly, separate from the unfair cancellations, operating in this way is crazy, and you don't always win. You mostly don't win.
I think it's like you said. If you fail, you weren't in founders mode, but if you succeed, you were. And clearly, by that logic, she just never got to founders mode.
She didn't founder mode hard
because
enough.
she wasn't permitted to.
I mean, Eade, what is your conception of the intersection of founder mode and feminism?
The intersectionality or something.
Seventh wave feminism, I think is what we're at this point.
When I saw people complaining about it, I knew what they were talking about. Which is, it's really hard. You have to push yourself really hard to have the level of executive directness. As a woman, I think for a lot of women, you have to do this. And there's this innate self-consciousness about how that's going to be received. Because traditionally, women haven't, been as powerful, or historically. And so I read it more of as a manifestation of that insecurity or that difficulty. Do I think the reality of the situation, there was a time period where there were a lot of takedowns. I'm thinking, when I think of, obviously, Elizabeth Holmes, I view her as a sociopath before I, see her as a female founder personally. But you think of outdoor voices like Tyler Haney, and I do think that media mistreated her a little bit, but there's lots of instances like that for male founders too, as you've mentioned. And so it's my question is what would female Travis K look like? How would she act, and could she get away with it?
I mean, we had Sheryl Sandberg for years, and she was worshipped, is what I think about. And I think about Elizabeth Holmes is a great example because, who knows what happened there? Poor Elizabeth. I mean, she's in prison now, so she's getting.
Elizabeth was in founders mode.
What?
Yeah.
I think
that's definitely founder mode. That to me is
fraud, doing fraud like that, like she did. That's founders mode, in my opinion. She was
we're not going to do a blood test.
Yeah,
she was in the fast lane, foundering the whole time, but she was worshipped on her way up. It wasn't like she was being criticized for founder moding. She was being celebrated for that. And then, in fact, the Nasty Girl founder had a whole Netflix series made after her. That wasn't because it was uninspiring or they didn't like what she was doing. And so I don't know that
it's literally Land Among the Stars. I think, even the question of could a woman get away with how Travis K acted? It's he didn't get away with it either.
Right.
I actually like him. I'm a fan.
I love Travis. I've written about Travis. One of these days I'm going to connect with Travis. I want to interview Travis. I believe, he was just unjustly persecuted. He was a clear, just classic VC assassination. And I think that Uber would be doing way better today if he was still in charge of that company. I think it's like, the people who are most harmed by that were certainly Uber and anyone with Uber equity. That was messed up what happened. Bill Gurley just gets away scot-free. It's crazy.
Yeah.
For being a founder in founder mode. Unbelievable.
Another woman who got canceled in founder mode was the CEO of a company called Away. And this was actually quite a salacious cancellation. Away is I don't even know if it's still around. Suitcases. And they were very trendy. They're like, what are those mugs that people were really hyped up on for a minute?
Liberal tears?
No. Like the thermoses.
The Stanleys?
Yeah, you could add a lot of things. I feel like there was like a moment for these suitcases. And around Christmas time of her cancellation, they had this like massive surge of orders. And she basically, there was a New York Mag piece or something like that, this detailing how she was like, basically it's like she was a slave driver. And it was very humiliating for her because somebody leaked screenshots of Slack where she's just going nuts on everybody. Like, we have to get these orders through. And she's being really mean about it. But this is one of these cancellations. But I think, honestly, a man would have been canceled at the same time period for that, too.
I don't know. I remember that one. And I do think that one felt to me, that one did feel a little bit sexist to me. I felt like she was acting in a way that she should have basically acted.
I mean, when I read it, I was like, oh, like,
or like it was bad, but like if Elon has had stories like that, and people have said, you're a bad person, get him, and it just hasn't mattered. People are like, most people are just like, whatever, who cares? But then again, as I'm saying that, like, there have been pieces like that about Elon, and it just didn't. So what happened? I mean, I wish I remembered. I didn't research the Away cancellation. I would be curious to know what happened. Following that out, was she unseated for that reason, or was it something else happening with the business? I also remember Taylor Lorenz going after her and piling on at that moment. She was screenshotting this girl's Instagram stories. This is like a not public company. It's crazy, the scrutiny that just random ass small companies used to get. We're not small, but private companies used to get back then. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that company ultimately, whatever happened to her because of that. An interesting case study, though. And for me, that's the one that I look at and I wonder about.
I don't remember what happened to
it. Searching for a way. We'll have to circle back and I'll update you next week. In fact, have her on the pod, see how she's been doing. Because I don't think that I don't think she's running that company anymore. But I do remember being like, leave her alone. Yeah. Leave Brittany alone was where I was when to my credit, always on the right side of history. Always.
Doesn't miss.
Never. I do not fucking miss. So watch out, coconut. No, I don't know. I'm not making a political statement right now. It is time for our Polymarket segment, featuring us, Pirate Wires, and our partners, paid partners, Polymarket. Thank you, Polymarket. Love you guys. We're going to look at the betting markets, and we're going to look at them on the topic of immigration. All right. So at the time of this recording, right now, Polymarket gave the SAVE Act, a bill requiring ID to vote in federal elections, a 3% chance of passing. Okay. The bill still needs to clear the House, and there's consensus that it would be dead on arrival in the Senate. President Biden strongly opposes it, stating, it is already illegal for non-citizens to vote in federal elections. He argues it would make voter registration more difficult for eligible Americans and notes that non-citizen voting in federal elections is, quote, extraordinarily rare. Okay, as long as it's rare. Media outlets have echoed the sentiment. Axios, Reality Check, states, a handful of states and localities allow non-citizens to vote, they say, in some local elections. But Axios emphasizes that instances of non-citizens wrongfully voting or registering to vote are rare. Again, man. So, I mean, on the betting market side, I think what's interesting here, 3%, nobody thinks that this is going to happen. Nobody thinks that the government is going to take voter ID seriously on the question of voting. And I think it's worth just kind of taking apart briefly a couple of the Biden claims. These come up again and again. One, that it's extraordinarily rare for non-citizens to vote. Two, that it somehow disenfranchises minority voters mostly. I've seen this argument made the most in the case of black voters, which to me is maddening, crazy. Kind of can't believe that we're saying black people don't know how to get a driver's license in 2024. I don't even know where that idea came from. Like, was there a time in American history when black people didn't have this? It's certainly before my time, 1985, and does not exist right now, where the black vote, we talk about black people are not having a hard time figuring out how to vote. So what are we really talking about here? Bunch of pieces. I don't know. What do you guys make of it?
Didn't Palmer mention on the pod this week, like needing to show ID to buy paint at like a hardware store in like his early inventor days?
If you're a certain age, yeah.
So you need ID to buy a can of spray paint, but to vote and decide our next president, yeah, it's fine. That's insane to me.
Yeah, or to drink, you know? Like, I mean, it's you show your ID. So I guess I don't care. I never thought much about this. The fact that they so desperately don't want it to happen, that is the thing that concerns me. The fact that they are so furiously opposed to the idea of checking an ID before voting. It's like, what? Wait a minute. I was not thinking about voter fraud, but now I'm wondering what the fuck you're covering up. Like, what are you hiding?
It's the same question to me. And honestly, if you're one of those people like your phone is cracked, you lose your ID at the club every 3 months, you can't vote. Like, should you vote? Do you want to vote?
Yeah, I think that's a salient point.
Your priorities
Oh my God.
We shouldn't want. It's not clear that people who don't know how to get a driver's license, maybe they shouldn't be voting. I don't know.
I know, man. It's
probably heretical to say
questions here,
right?
too.
Like,
it's not just that, right? Like, it's like, I always say, whenever I see these campaigns to get out the vote, and it's just, get out any vote is kind of that is the philosophy there. Doesn't matter who they are or how prepared they are, how thoughtful they are. It is just some kind of moral good that everybody in the country votes. I don't believe that. I actually tell people, if you don't know what's going on, just sit this one out, champ. It's fine. If you don't know who the fuck to vote for at this point, like, are you really keyed in at all? Do you not have, if you don't have any, honestly, find the average normie who's like, I don't know, I haven't really thought much about it. Drill down on issues that matter to them. Generally speaking, they're pretty blissed out. They're happy in their life. They're not thinking about politics. Who am I to go and knock on that door and say, look at this horrifying hellscape? I don't know that they need to. I don't know that really matters. I think that probably low information voting is a bad thing and high information voting is what we should prioritize. I don't know if that makes me a radical. I think technically it does in today's landscape. And so maybe I wear that badge proudly. If you don't know what's going on, please stay home in 2024. I don't care what you have to say. If you don't read, I am not really that interested in what you think about Kamala. Truly, I'm not. I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad. I just don't give a shit. So it's like, I'm happy you're happy. I think you're probably happy. I'm happy. I don't know why this third party is getting involved in saying, no, we all have to care about each other's business. It's like, stay home if you don't know what's going on. And that's the same for, it's like, yeah, less people voting actually probably is what we need.
Probably.
So that's our Polymarket segment. All right. Last thoughts before we get up to the Pirate Idol segment. What do you think is going to be coming up in this next batch of Pirate Idol contestants?
Well, how many more rounds do we have? Like, what's the next step? I guess that's my question. We have this one coming up where they're all first timers. Are we narrowing? I think we're going to do brackets? Are we moving
one
into the
more
next
week of first timers, if not two? I'm going to see I'm going to feel it out there. And then I think we got to bring people back and have more head to heads. I think I'm going to invite them into the group chats where we can put them on topics to do researching and presenting. I was also thinking it might be fun to do debates, That might be interesting to get people who disagree on an issue and just have them attack each other.
Maybe like a physical fight.
We could put them in fat suits too. It would be funny. That would be funny. That also is going to cost money though. And we're a startup. I'm in founder mode. I can't afford that. Brandon, what was it?
I think we should add the what are the front runners? They should just be the fourth guest on the next like series of 4 podcasts.
I think that's like the semifinal. I think it's I think we have maybe one more, because I was thinking about taking even 2 from some of these groups, not just one from each. I like a lot of these people. They're all great.
Can I jump in?
They're all welcome on the pod anytime.
Horse?
What was that, Eade?
Can I jump in? Can I just like dark horse?
Yes, of course.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like you just have to do a lot to stand out. Just like light.
That's what Martin Shkreli said. He said it's not enough to be informed. You have to be entertaining. And if you're not, you get the cut. And I said, that's so rude. But quietly, I was like, that's accurate.
I think our audience saw, they recognized the people who added a lot of value from a more intellectual standpoint as opposed to entertaining standpoint. I'm talking about Kartik, who I stan.
Brandon came out early on Kartik.
First called Kartik.
And the pirates are with you right now. We still get Kartik comments. We'll probably get Kartik comments today. Well, we'll see, because we've got quite the lineup for you now. All right, let's get into it. Welcome back to the greatest competition on earth. I was gonna say the internet, but it's like, it's bigger than that. At this point, it's Pirate Idol. I mean, I'm getting messages about it. I'm getting DMs about it. I'm stoked for every single one of you. Last week, actually, I'm trying to think now, who was the break? Brandon, Riley, do you remember who the breakouts were? Kartik heads are still going strong, like in comments on the last episode. People are going nuts for Kartik. We've got 4 new contestants. Every one of you guys sent in a take that I thought was great and interesting and fun, and I liked your energy. Stoked that you guys are joining. The rules for folks just tuning in, if you're possibly just tuning in now for the first time ever, seems crazy to me. We are going to we're going to present a topic. Riley's going to break down the topic. It's a fun topic this week. Each one of you guys is going to get a chance to just give your take on it. Any one of you can jump in on any other. Dunking is permitted. Friendly banter is permitted. Just sort of evolving the conversation in any way you want is permitted. At the end of that, we'll kind of just talk back, and there will be probably some sort of judgment, but it's going to feel less probably official than when Martin Shkreli did it. I just don't have that in me to your faces. You guys are all nice guys. Like, then again, we'll see. I don't know. And maybe Eade will just surprise me and be the Simon Cowell that we've been looking for. But I think it's not going to go that way. So let's just get into it. Riley, the topic of the week, my friend.
Sure thing. So your topic this week, contestants. The San Francisco City Attorney's Office filed a lawsuit Tuesday against tobacco companies, including Swisher International and Lucy Goods, accusing them of violating state law over their sale of flavored nicotine pouches and endangering young people's lives. A 2016 ordinance had banned the sale of flavored tobacco products to anyone in the city. However, San Francisco officials say the companies are violating that law by selling the pouches to customers online.
TLDR, they're banning flavored Zyn.
Yes.
They're coming for your Zyn, boys. Faisal, my man, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself, please. Who are you? Where are you from? What's your favorite color? What do you think about flavored Zyn?
Okay, my name is Faisal. I'm from Saudi Arabia, actually. But I went to high school in the US, so I had the full high school musical experience, I like to say. But my favorite color I'd say is green. And there's a lot to the story, actually. At first, it seemed like a surface level topic, but the way I was framing it to my friend on the phone is, suppose I woke you up in the middle of the night. I told you that all high school students were using Zyn. Would you care? I would go back to sleep, personally. And I think what we're going through today is just another set of below-the-belt moves that intend to just win boxing points in this endless partisan boxing match. And, it's not that surprising. And I don't think that's the real story here. I think there's this trend I think was mentioned on the last pod that the truth is separate from the truth is separate from the story. And I think that's the story. But I feel like the truth, if you dig deep, even on the website of the California Department of Public Health, they mentioned themselves the FDA study that was actually released this September in 2024. That was like a survey of youth, and that 1 in 100 high school students were using nicotine pouches, and 1 in 100 middle school students were using nicotine pouches. Where
that feels like a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot, but in context, I would say
a lot of, middle school 13-year-olds, 1 in 100 13-year-olds were on Zyn. That's crazy. That strikes me as insane.
It's got to be more for drinking.
Really cool parents.
I was.
What was that, Eade?
1 in 100 middle schoolers has really cool parents.
yeah.
Dude, I don't know. I think this is more evidence of the infantilization of society. When I was 13, kids were smoking Marlboro Reds, man. What is this?
Yeah.
What is this shit?
Yeah, when my dad was 17, he was signing up for Vietnam.
There you go.
And look at me, I'm 39. I've got a podcast. So I agree with you there. Actually, Andrew, why don't you, tell us who are you and give us your take.
I am Andy Jones. I'm just a guy. I am currently a stay-at-home dad in Texas. So I don't have a B2B SaaS startup or anything I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but anyway, I've got opinions. So, dude, this thing to me looks like, at first blush, it's kind of like a Bloomberg style, nanny state thing. You can't have big gulps anymore because everyone's fat, right? You sort of get that vibe off of Chuck Schumer's even involved in this thing, right? He got up in front of the cameras where he likes to be and was telling everybody, warning parents about the evils of Zins. This is the dude that took Real Four Loko from us, by the way. His number one sin, Real Four Loko. I never got to try it. I'm 45 years old.
Yeah.
I can't,
You look like you tried a lot.
I hate, for that alone, I hate that man. But I don't think that's the real story. Just like Faisal, I don't think that's the real story. I think the real story here is that studies show, and this is going to be my Tucker Carlson, Alex Jones, schizo take here. But studies have purported to show, right, that nicotine use raises testosterone and, as I found out in my research, growth hormone, amongst other things. So growth hormone makes you jacked, huh? And testosterone makes you jacked and driven. And if you are
they want
jacked,
you feminized.
They don't want you jacked and driven because you are a jacked and driven person. You are not a good subject for their WEF globalist agenda, right?
That speaks to
You're
me.
not going to eat the bugs.
Well, you have to place it in the context of what they are allowing. So they're coming. You have a group of people who are dedicated to going after flavored Zyn. This is the pouches, right? It's not true. It's just the little nicotine pouches that sit in your. So you're going after just nicotine, straight up, not tobacco, not inhaling. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of cancer risk that we know of yet. You're going after nicotine, which is an addiction. Fentanyl dealing is effectively legalized in San Francisco, or decriminalized, let's say. No one's going after them. We have Honduran fentanyl dealers that we can't get deported. And this is what we're focusing on. It's just crazy. So there has to be some kind of a motive, some kind of a reason why. I love the idea of it being a conspiracy theory. Or not a conspiracy theory. I love the idea of it being something broader, the sort of I didn't realize that it pumped your tea.
Evidently. It's not a very, in all honesty, it's not a very large
reason to explore the substance. But I also know that San Francisco voters, your kind of average San Francisco lib, is pretty stupid. And the thing that will motivate them here, and the way that sort of you were able to do anti-nuclear stuff, because people are like, oh, well, nuclear is scary and we like the environment. And so somehow you end up supporting energy sources that are actually bad for the environment. Right. This feels like that. It's like the word nicotine is scary. And so we're not really exploring the new substance. It's just, let's ban it. And then, please don't let it get out there that it also spikes tea, because at that point it will be, the pitchforks.
And growth hormone, dude. And growth hormone. Come on. This is that's a killer combo. That's the bodybuilder combo. And, if you want compliant bug eating, pod sleeping, subjects. You don't want them. You don't want them on nicotine. That's all. That's
you take away their nicotine. Riley, what do you make of the? I mean, you strike me as a Zin. I know Eric's a Zin guy. He's not here with us today. He's our director of ops. Are you? Are you like a Zoomer Zin boy? Like, what is the? What? Tell me that.
Zins are huge among my demographic. So if there's any hope for the youth, it's in that. But yeah, Eric's the big Zin guy.
Well, I mean, another thing that I forgot to bring up though is, it's a stimulant, right? It makes you more productive. I mean, nicotine, aside from the addictive properties and the blood pressure and like the cardiac stuff, the light that burns twice as bright burns half as long, right? But like, it makes you more productive. I mean, come on, there's another reason they don't want us taking it.
I think it's like super tied to just the inability to accept that like story does not work at all, and kind of pushing this like harm reduction psychology into regulating Zin in a way that you couldn't in the fetus when like Juul was like popping off in the beginning. So
just a little bit in defense of the drug never doer people. It seems like the Juuls probably were pretty bad, right? I mean,
I'd say that
maybe not. I see some head rolls. No, maybe not. No, it seems like, so they have those. Was all the throat stuff? Was that just like fake news? Was all the weird?
Yeah, I thought there was like some big moral panic about like whatever, like
water in there or something. I remember there being like a mystery Juul disease. They cooked it up in their
bathtub or some shit, and it was giving people turbo cancer. I don't know.
Right. It was also Chinese pods. If you were putting Chinese pods in there, like janky Chinese, like fake knockoff pods. So that to me is really not even. That's not a tobacco story or a nicotine story. That's a globalist story.
It's a China story.
We can talk about ending globalism all day, but that's very different than trying to ban nicotine.
True.
Chris, my man, where are you from? What is your favorite color? No, give me something else. Give me like, what is your favorite state that is not a state that you live in? And what is your take on the great San Francisco banning of Zin, 2004?
Okay. Yeah. Hi, I'm Chris Duvall. I'm the co-founder of Tech Sales Mentors. We help people get hired in tech. And I live outside of Nashville. My favorite state is definitely Florida. It is incredible. I'm spiritually an old person already. Me and my wife are like, we're ready for the retirement homes as soon as they'll let us in. So definitely Florida. Okay, so here's my hot take. And I've got some screenshots I can send to Matt afterwards if he maybe wants to edit these in. The quality of cocaine has risen dramatically, even since 2011, while the price has actually decreased if you take into account inflation by a lot. And the same is true for heroin and fentanyl too. Okay, they're following the same cost curve. So if you look at common consumer goods, the worst things that are suffering from...
Pause. Are you saying that inflation has not touched hard drugs? So like eggs are more
They're
expensive.
beating it.
Okay,
the drugs are beating the inflation. It's cheaper than it was in 2011. Yeah. So if you look at consumer goods, the three that have suffered the worst are colleges, anything education related, housing, and medical. The things that are most highly regulated by the government, and the things that have actually dropped in cost so those things have increased by 200% in the last 8 years. The things that have dropped by 50% in the last 3 years are cars, cell phones, and televisions, the things that are least regulatable. So really, what this looks like to me is there's a straight line between how much we regulate something and its cost and quality. And in order for us to protect the children of America from the FDA, it is our moral obligation to create a black market for nicotine pouches.
Oh.
I like the spirit.
I'd subscribe to the newsletter. I'm interested in learning more.
That's the spirit of 1776 right there.
Brandon, what do you think?
Not much. I think it's weird that we prescribe kids Adderall. I mean, I think that's a closer analogy than legalizing basically legal fentanyl on the San Francisco streets. Like, we're happy to give kids Adderall, which I think probably destroys their brains, but we don't want them to use nicotine. And I think kids, like, I don't know. And also I was confused, Riley. You said that Lucy was under investigation, but what about, is Zyn owned by Philip Morris? Is Zyn like specifically or is it just Lucy?
It's all flavored nicotine pouches, so including Lucy, but plus like Zen and all the others. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to post that question of just asking a parent, would you rather your kid chew 2 milligrams of Lucy, like nicotine gum every day, or they take 10 milligrams of Adderall as prescribed by a doctor every day for, I don't know, even just a year? I don't know. Actually, Andy, what would you say to that?
Let's see.
Under your head, you have to choose. Or if you don't want to bring your kids into it, we don't have to either.
No, that's funny. Okay. I mean, let's see. As the father of 3 children myself and somebody who was an Adderall user, I would probably honestly go for the Adderall. Like, it's just, I was a smoker like a long time ago for a few years, and it was way harder to quit like cigarettes than it was to stop taking Adderall.
That is true. That I've had the same experience with nicotine gum. It is like a legit. It becomes a legit addiction in a way that I agree that Adderall is never. I've no problem.
There's a withdrawal period, no doubt, right? I mean, because you're going to have like a big like dopamine crash and all that stuff, but generally speaking, it's better. You're better in like a week or something like that. But yeah, like the nicotine stuff, dude, that was tough.
I just get the sense that the Adderall actually has a more lasting impact on your brain. It just seems that way to me. Even just from having tried both, the nicotine, it just doesn't feel as serious to me. It just feels, which is probably, it's not scientific, but I mean, the guy with a podcast, you know what I mean?
Like experientially, like kids should not be on meth. I mean, it's like kind of a bad demonic experience to be. It's like demonic. I've been on Adderall before, and it's like I feel like a little creature, on Adderall. Like I don't feel right, and I think it's kind of weird to subject kids to that feeling. I don't know. I don't think it's right.
Yeah, no. I mean, personally, I sympathize a lot with that. I mean, in my experience, I honestly felt like myself on Adderall. I felt like my brain worked the way that it should. But that being said, like I'm extremely hesitant to have it prescribed to my children. Like I would much rather do, sort of behavioral type stuff way before we go to drugs, the sort of the South Park, like shut up and study thing, which is obviously much healthier for kids than.
Yeah, I do. I have a problem just with the idea of, your kid is having trouble paying attention in class, maybe bumping up and down, wants to go outside. And your first reaction as a doctor is not to say, hey, maybe this environment's unnatural for children and especially young boys, but like, should we give them amphetamines? I think that's the broader problem. That's a whole other topic. It's an interesting topic. I love that we got to like an actually sort of like authentically interesting topic out of idiots in San Francisco once again banning something rather than fentanyl. Chris, I saw you like kind of shaking your head before we cut this one. I saw you kind of nodding a little bit ago. It seemed like you had another opinion you wanted to add or a point you wanted to share.
Yeah, I mean, part of the overprescription of Adderall is just because kids are doing something pretty unnatural, which is being put into school for 18 years. Like boys are not supposed to do that. And when I was in middle school, the teacher recommended that 9 out of 10 boys in our class get prescribed Adderall. So I don't know if that's still such an endemic thing, but like it's been a problem where especially boys are not great at sitting in a chair for 8 hours. And so you're going to get what are teachers going to do? Teachers are going to optimize for the results that you're driving them towards. And that's how do we make the boys sit in the chairs? And you're going to get downstream results from that.
Yeah, and I think like one of the simple solutions to this is just make PE the first thing they do. Like, I'm serious, just run their asses off, like run them into the ground, and then they won't be like, like bouncing around like they're in a fucking electric chair, like while they have to listen to some idiot drone on, at a black, right?
There was that California school that did that in like the 80s or 90s, and they have all the kids have like 8-packs. There's Founders Fund. What is it called, Andrew?
Oh, I don't remember what it was called, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I think that was actually from like the 60s or something like that. It was like a while ago. But
yeah, it's in Founders Fund's like promotional videos.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the one my colleague Petrano put that together? The one on Twitter that's with the cool music behind it. Matt, you can play a clip of that right now. It's inspiring. I always love to go back and play that. Last thoughts, guys. This is it. We're wrapping up here. Anything? Going once?
I don't know, man.
Twice.
I honestly, I think it's bullshit. I think it's
Which one?
I think it's nanny status bullshit. I think the same thing.
Oh.
Yeah, we're back to the real topic here. Like my Adderall kicked in. So so it's nanny state bullshit. It is also like an insidious way to make Americans docile and less productive. And you know, screw Chuck Schumer and screw San Francisco's leadership. Screw all those people. I want my goddamn Four Loko back. All right, that's it.
That was the his bitch is too bad, his smoke is too tough, they'll kill him moment. It's like the crime equivalent of like allowing murder and just like not letting the easy shit slide. Sounds like a
for real. I mean, it's really just nonsense tinkering at the margins, as Burke would. I think it was Burke. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, like, you know, just tinkering at the margins. You know, like the fentanyl thing. Everybody's like, you know, nodding out and fucking dying from fentanyl and living on the street and shit. And here you are, like, taking away nicotine pouches. What the fuck are you doing? You know,
Nobody knows.
Christ, like, hire some more cops, like, crack some skulls, and like establish order. Jesus. Sorry.
Yes.
You said you have
Leaning
3 kids, so we can give one Adderall, one nicotine, just in their Gatorade. And then one
Gatorade. Oh, I thought Gatorade was the third. I'm like, what's wrong with Gatorade? Gatorade is a problem too now? I can't keep up with these rules. Guys, it's been real. Thank you for joining Pirate Idol. In the comments, sound off. Who do you want to see more from? Tell us what your favorite color is. Tell us what you think about Zyn. Rate, review, subscribe. Tell your friends about it. Follow The Daily. Listen to that last podcast we did with Palmer Luckey. It was fucking epic. Thank you, Palmer, again. Thank you for your service. Have a great night and a good weekend.